Hello friend. I want to tell you about the Volkswagen Passat B8 car. The chassis, taken over, of course suitably modified, from the Golf 7, does not take anything away from the Passat. The car, like the previous generations, has suspension with spring struts at the front and a multi-link structure at the rear. An option was the adaptive DDC suspension, which can be found in many richly equipped cars. The steering system is electrically assisted. The engines were placed transversely under the hood, and some variants had four-wheel drive. The Haldex clutch, like in older generations and other Volkswagens, was responsible for transferring power to the rear axle. A technical curiosity of the model is the plug-in hybrid with a traction battery with a capacity of 9.9 kilowatt-hours until 2018 and 13 kilowatt-hours from the 2019 model year. This variant was not available with four-wheel drive. When buying a car, it is worth paying attention to the equipment version, because the Passat was offered in basic versions with very poor equipment for this segment, but also in luxury versions. Some cars may have velour upholstery, manual air conditioning and halogen lamps, while others may have leather bucket seats and adaptive LED lights. This of course has an impact on operating costs. Even LED lights or driving assistance systems will always generate problems with even minor accidents. The simpler the model, the cheaper. The range of engines in the Passat B8 is strictly dependent on the year of production. A clear division occurred in 2019, although one can also talk about a transition period, i.e. the years 2018-2019. In the petrol range, the basic drive was from the beginning 1.4 TSI with 125 or 150 HP. Also available were 1.8 TSI with 180 HP and 2.0 TSI generating 220 and 280 HP. In 2018-2019, only the 1.5 TSI, 150 HP, with a GPF filter and 2.0 TSI with a GPF filter with 272 HP were used. After the facelift, from the 2019 model year, the range consisted of 1.5 TSI engines with 150 HP and 2.0 TSI with 190 and 272 HP, and a more powerful variant from the 2020 model year with 280 HP. Importantly, however, these engines were not identical to their counterparts from the 2018-2019 period. All engines after the facelift now have a GPF filter. Volkswagen calls it OPF. The diesel range has had 3 different engines in 4 power versions since the start of production. The basic 1.6 TDI developed 120 HP, and the 2.0 TDI 150 or 190 HP. The most powerful diesel is the 2.0 TDI biturbo with 240 HP. From 2019 to 2020, a 120 horsepower 1.6 TDI diesel was offered, but from 2020 onwards, it was replaced by a 122 horsepower 2.0 TDI. The 190 horsepower version was replaced by a 200 horsepower version in 2020. In 2020, the 240 horsepower biturbo diesel was discontinued. The 150 horsepower engine was kept almost unchanged throughout the period from 2019 to the end of production. Depending on the variant and year, manual or automatic DSG gearboxes were offered, 6 and 7 speed. Each engine version was paired with an automatic gearbox. Many versions had four-wheel drive. To systematize it, I have prepared a list with all the information. Which engine to choose? The choice of engines in this model is so simple that almost everyone can be considered at least good. You should only approach the 1.5 TSI with caution if the car has high mileage. Although it often has serious problems from the very beginning with petrol getting into the oil and the phenomenon of knocking combustion. The most economical are the 1.4 TSI petrols and diesels. With a little will, the 2.0 TSI versions also burn little, but only those with 190 HP, working in the Miller cycle. If you are aiming for a diesel, it is better to look for at least a 150 HP 2.0 TDI, because the 1.6 TDI is too weak. Its successor, the 2.0 TDI with 122 HP, is equally weak and does not offer better performance, because it has been suppressed to meet emission standards. The safest option is a manual transmission, the durability of which is not yet fully known. Automatics, especially 7-speed ones, tend to have their first failures after 200,000 kilometers. What's broken? Without going into details about each engine, we can say that petrol units are considered to be problem-free. Of course, they have their weak points, but when serviced according to the art, they do not bother users with failures. It is worth paying attention to the coolant level because both engines can experience small leaks. One of the typical problems of Passats up to the 2019 model year was clogging the cooling system with silicate placed in special bags, which was supposed to mix with the more ecological G13 coolant. If the inscription on the expansion tank is MIT silicate, it means that the G13 coolant must be used and there is a risk of the bag bursting. Silicate, after being released from the bag, primarily gets into the heater, which it blocks. It can also cause the cooling system to become clogged. Silicate bags should be removed and not used for safety reasons for the cooling system. Ecological G13 fluid should be removed from the system and the entire system should be flushed, pouring in a coolant such as in cars after facelift. In 1.4 and 1.5 TSI, the timing belt should be replaced every 120,000 kilometers. In the rest, there is a chain, also replaceable, best at around 150,000 kilometers. In diesels, it is recommended to replace the timing belt no later than after 120,000 kilometers. In the 1.8 and 2.0 engines, there is no problem with excessive oil consumption or carbon buildup. The manufacturer has used dual injection, direct and indirect, which of course after a large mileage can have its price in the workshop when replacing 8 injectors. But thanks to this type of power supply, these units are failure-free. Diesels generate slightly more problems than petrol engines, but they mainly concern areas responsible for emission standards. From the beginning of production, TDI engines with the SCR system were offered in some versions and for some markets. Until 2019, not every TDI must have AdBlue fluid and it is worth looking for such a car. You will find the AdBlue filler next to the fuel filler flap. If the diesel engine is running unevenly or the warning lights are on, the source of the problem is often in the exhaust system or EGR system. It is also not uncommon for the injectors to become blocked, as they do not like B7 diesel fuel. The engines themselves are very durable, but repairs to the equipment can completely eliminate the savings resulting from lower fuel consumption than in petrol units. The Bosch injection pump is delicate and does not like air bubbles getting into it. If the fuel system is aerated, the camshaft will seize very quickly, which leads to the pump being fouled and the entire fuel system becoming contaminated. This can happen, for example, when driving with a low fuel level, on reserve. Automatic gearboxes are slightly worse than engines. The most delicate is the 7-speed DQ200 gearbox fitted to the weaker 1.4, 1.5, 1.8 TSI and 1.6 TDI engines. If the car is to be driven a lot in the city and on short distances, this is not a good choice. Remember to change the oil in the gearbox and mechatronics regularly. Then it should last up to about 200,000 kilometers without any problems. The DQ250 transmission is highly valued and features 6 gears. It has wet clutches that are very durable. With regular servicing, oil changes, it can easily last 300,000 kilometers and more. A worthy successor to this transmission is the 7-speed DQ381, which also requires servicing and can withstand long mileage. The DQ500 transmission, on the other hand, was installed only with biturbo diesels and is the most durable. Unfortunately, even the best DSG gearboxes, unlike classic automatics, have clutches and a dual-mass flywheel, and the entire set can cost over $1,250. The durability of the gearboxes themselves is not comparable to many standard automatics. If you buy a car with a mileage of over 200,000 kilometers, you should expect the first failures resulting from neglected maintenance. In the case of manual gearboxes, there is nothing to worry about, apart from the dual-mass flywheel. All engine versions have dual mass. Many models equipped with an opening panoramic roof have a problem with wet upholstery after rain. This is most often the result of the roof drainage channels not being clear, clogged with dirt, including leaves, needles, and tree seeds. It also happens that the roof rails are leaky. Unfortunately, many users of this model have a problem with leaks into the interior. Few, however, struggle with corrosion. The chassis and bodywork are very well protected, and considering today's very low standards regarding paint coatings, those applied to Passats are usually quite durable. The running gear develops a few minor issues with mileage. A dull thud may be caused by worn brake caliper guides, and play in the steering gear can be eliminated. In the front suspension, we have a classic McPherson with replaceable front wishbone pins. It lasts about 200,000 kilometers. In the rear suspension, we find 4 wishbones per wheel with replaceable silent blocks or entire wishbones. The rear is even more durable than the front. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know any problems with this car that I didn't mention, be sure to write about them in the comments.